Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Philly Factor. My name is Paul Perrello, and we are joined today by producer and director Matt Howley. Matt is with the Workshop Content Studios, but more importantly, Matt is a LaSalle graduate. And Matt, I'm going to welcome you back via this Zoom session. We would much prefer to do it in studio, but given the way of the world these days, this is how we're going to do it. So you're a graduate from the class of 1994?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, great, great to be with you, Paul. Thanks for having me. This is looking forward to it.
Much younger than me. I was, one of the pioneers. I graduated in 1979, so you're still the kid in the room. But well accomplished, I may add, for sure. I want to talk. There's so much to talk to you about, including, I guess, your work with Netflix, the series that it was nominated and won a Real Screen Award. You went up against the likes of ESPN and Michael Jordan. And tell me a little bit about that whole experience with that Real Screen Award nomination and what the series Basketball or Nothing was all about.
It was just an article we read, Paul, back in 2017. I was out somewhere else filming something, and I read a story that was in the New York Times that was just about a group of kids in Arizona that play a unique style of basketball. And, realizing by the end of the article, these kids are up against a lot on this particular reservation. And it felt like just one of those stories where visually, and the pictures were stunning. I said, wow, that would be great to maybe follow a team on a reservation and see what that life is like. I've seen basketball series that are set in inner cities or somewhere else, but I hadn't seen one in Native American or with a tribe or with a reservation. So we called out there and asked for permission to come out just to kind of scout and meet with some people and potentially get the blessing of some of the people in the community. So I was out there just by myself for a couple of days, and it was really unbelievable what I saw there. And then, meeting some of the tribal elders and some of the people who were very skeptical of what our intent was with the series. We did not have Netflix on board at that time. It was just some guy in Philadelphia coming out to say hello and saying he wants to shoot a documentary. And they said they had been burned in the past by people who had been in that area, who'd come to that area and just shown off the poverty and the alcoholism and some of the negative effects there. And they said they didn't want to do that, and I said, we would love to do something that would show the resiliency of these kids, and that's the one word, Paul, that kept popping back was like resiliency. And they said, by the end of my trip, it was, if you can stay true to that, then we'd like to have you. So it all started from that, and then we went back out. That was in August of 2017, and we went back out in November and started filming the first season there, and had no idea what it was tough because the kids were extremely shy, and it took a while to get that trust with the kids and the team and the community, which is like you can't do anything without that, right? And then about a month in, they finally kind of warmed up to us and started inviting us into their homes, and we really got to know some of these families. And I feel like that's where the documentary series really kind of took off, because if you're just shooting basketball practices and games, I don't know how many people you're going to attract with that. But once we got to see these kids and what they're up against, so we shot everything and got turned down by Netflix 3 different times, and then the 4th time they said yes, and then we had our series. And the fact that we were, Paul, we don't get into this to try to win awards. It's just something that happens if you catch some breaks and you have a great story. And that's what this community allowed us to do, is to share their story. And the fact that we were nominated and we were able to win something was pretty special. And to get it to share it with that community was the best part, because they were to watch them on social media that night saying, we beat Michael Jordan, and that's that's what we wanted, because it's their story. If they don't allow us in their homes, if they don't allow us and share all these really personal moments, then what do we have? Sure. So our approach was, it's nothing we did. You were just kind enough to to allow us to tell your story.
I mentioned at the outset, I'm sort of identified you as a director and a producer, but we should mention it's much bigger than that. You're a documentarian, and having interviewed a number of other documentary filmmakers in my career, I'm amazed at how someone like you, Matt, is able to gain the trust of the subject or subjects that you're interviewing, because I don't care who you are or how well polished you are and where you come from. When someone puts a camera in front of your face and starts asking you questions, the tendency is that person is going to either freeze or just be reluctant to answer questions, especially when it comes to documentaries. And you sort of alluded to this, because oftentimes these people in this community had been burned by other people that were going in and trying to tell their story for whatever reason. But I often tell students that something like that, getting the trust, learning how to get the trust of your subject when you're making a documentary, doesn't come in a textbook. You're not going to find that anywhere in a textbook. That only comes with being good at your job and just doing it time and time and time again. Would you agree?
Yeah, you said that probably better than I could say it, Paul. And even in our most recent trip there, and constantly reminding, we have a real small crew, but constantly reminding them that we're guests here, and for us, there was a moment that happened during the first season when the athletic director is a really deep spiritual man named Sean Martin. And we were about 10 days into filming, and we still hadn't made a breakthrough with that trust process that you referenced there. And I just said to Sean, I'm in a candid moment. I said, I'm struggling here. We're not connecting with these kids. We're not doing anything that's really going to pop here. And he just said, these kids they're not going to care about this project until they care about you. And I just said, wow, okay. And so we just reminded ourselves to just put the cameras down and spend some time with these kids, with their families, sit in the stands with a parent during a game, and like stuff we should have been doing probably from the beginning, which is where I erred on this one. But like when we finally started doing that and having lunch with these families, and they got to who we were, and then they cared about us, so that when we went home over Christmas break and came back, the kids were like, hey, I'm going out to my ranch this weekend. Do you want to come with us? And hey, so then opportunities started opening up. But I left there to go home for Christmas thinking like we're in trouble, and then when we got back and they were like, we did, one of the kids mentioned, we didn't think you were coming back. I said, we're here, we're not going anywhere. So what do you want to do? And then we started getting invited to places. And I said, wow, that's where, but like you lose sleep at night thinking, is that moment going to happen? And if that trust doesn't happen, we got a basketball show, and not what I hope is a human story. We have a basketball story,
Yeah.
and after a while, winning or losing games, it's okay, but it has to mean more than that, So once we got back from that trip and started getting invited to places, I said, we have something here. But yeah, it's something that sometimes it happens right away, but we certainly had to earn it more on this one than any other project I've been involved in.
You've been involved in a number of projects with a number of high-profile celebrities like Adam Levine, Ray Romano, Michael Phelps, Charles Barkley. The list goes on and on and on. When you were an undergraduate here at LaSalle in communication classes, did you envision a time that this is what you would be doing, or you were just looking to I know you had an internship, a successful internship with NBC Sports, but oftentimes when we're students sitting in a classroom, we envision where this is going to bring us and what we're ultimately going to do. Was this part of your plan?
I don't think so. I know my love in LaSalle was initially radio. And then getting a chance to do like WEXP stuff, and then doing some on camera stuff and realizing and listening to my voice and seeing myself on camera saying, I don't know that I'm going to be in front of the camera. So let's try something else. So, but when I finished LaSalle, I was in radio, and after 2 or 3 years in radio, it doesn't pay very well. And I wasn't going to be on the air. So then I said, let's see what else is out there. So I started working at some TV stations, and then that form of storytelling. Really, I really grew to love that. And then seeing it go from short form, 2 or 3 minute pieces, to half hour, to and then going from the shows that you mentioned were more in the reality space, and going from wanting to do something more meaningful in like 2010, 2011, to go from more reality to more documentary. And then, Paul, like, as you know, like, the whole landscape changed and documentaries became such a big part of what networks were doing, and also streamers came about and they're looking for docs, and it became to an area where our company would avoid because the margins are so thin, tough to really make a lot. But then it became like people are buying documentaries and people were buying episodic sports documentary series, and that's interesting. We like sports. That we have a couple people at our place that are into sports. We all love basketball, and it's like just kind of looking out there. What basketball story hasn't been told? Is there something in the Midwest, like the Hoosiers follow a team like that? And then we were all looking for a basketball series when that story came in the New York Times. So no, I thought I was going to do radio, and then just kind of as I was told at LaSalle, it's so much as like who you meet, and you meet someone doing radio who also works on the weekend as an anchor at a TV station. Hey, come by, and you want to intern here? Sure. And you're at a TV place, and I was working for somebody who ended up starting the Workshop production company back in like 2008. He said, "You want a job?" Okay, sure. So it's just like those people that you meet along the way that end up like making an impact and following them, saying that's what I want to do. But no, I didn't know that I was going to go into documentary in 93, 94. I wish I did.
Mm-hmm.
Could have got started in an earlier time, but
sure. With this experience under your belt now, I mean, I suspect that you've got to know, and it's another one of these things where you're not going to be able to go to a bookshelf, pull off the book, and open it up to page 417, and it says how to make a great documentary. I mean, it comes with the territory. You learn, and you sort of figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But what makes a great documentary? In the case of Basketball or Nothing, you alluded to that newspaper article that sort of opened your eyes and said, "Hey, this might be something we want to pursue." But deep down inside, how do you know, as a documentarian, that you've got a good story to explore and to tell?
Oh yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? And I feel like there's 100 different answers for it. And I certainly don't profess to have the right one, but I know, like, I feel like it starts with a great story, right? And then the characters to tell that story. And then, like, what our process is like, wow, there's a great story out there. Who's going to tell this story? And then it's about access. Can we get access to these characters and into this world? And then it's like, okay, well, is it just a lot of times, Paul, we have ideas that get stalled in the development stage because it's just meant to be a 5-minute piece. It's a great piece that you would see on Real Sports, but is there enough layers to the story for it to be a half hour, for it to be 90 minutes, for it to be, in Basketball or Nothing's case, 3 hours, 6 30-minute episodes? And a lot of times we have ideas, and I bring a lot of ideas to the table that are just like, that's a good 5-minute piece, and that's all it needed to be. But the ones that we end up spending time on are the ones that are like, there's a lot of layers to the story, and there's interesting characters to tell it, and we have a way into that world. Like for Basketball or Nothing, the story was great, but we needed a way into that world. And we had done some work in the golf space with 2 golfers. One was named Ricky Fowler, and one was named Noda Begay III. And Noda is an announcer, and he grew up on the Navajo Nation. And Ricky Fowler is a golfer whose grandmother grew up on the Navajo Nation. So we were already working with them on something else. So we said, hey, would you want to partner on this? You guys would be executive producers, and we do this together. And it feels a little more authentic because our executive producers are from this area or have natural ties to that area. So that got us the access to that world. And then when you put the story with the characters and the access, then I feel you have something, and I think it's, and the fact for us, Paul, was that we hadn't seen that story being told, so for us, it's like story, characters, and access, and for this particular one, we were able to kind of check those three boxes.
So you have the story, you said you check the three boxes. Now you got to get a platform to show the story. And you said that you had been turned down by Netflix a number of times. So how, and I'm not sure if it's you, Matt, as the filmmaker here, or it's someone else at the workshop content studio that negotiates with Netflix, but it's great. Great. It's one thing to be rejected once. It's kind of disconcerting when you get rejected twice. Rejection, though, is part of what happens in this business, whether it's radio, television, or film. So how do you overcome that hurdle of that door, not just with Netflix, but any idea that you have? How do you overcome that challenge of being turned down because for that person or that company, this may not be right for them right now? How do you overcome that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I feel like it's something that I hope that I'm getting better each day at dealing with it, but you never get used to it.
Sure.
We have some younger producers at our company that are just getting their first rounds of rejections or passes. And I'm just like, this business is built on that. Like 9 out of 10 times you're going to get told, not for us. We love this story, but it's not for us, So with, it's, now there are more platforms now. There's more places to pitch to. And what was interesting with Netflix was that we tried to get them in from the beginning, and they said, interesting story, but come back to us when you have rough cut 1 of episode 1 done. Well, all right, how do we do that? We don't have the money, So then we were able to get some funding through the 2 people that I had mentioned previously, which was, we didn't have to write grants. Sometimes we write grants for our documentaries. Sometimes we try to get somebody attached to it who can provide the funding. But for this one, since we were able to go shoot it on our own, Netflix had passed from the beginning, but we were able to go back to them because they had like an acquisitions department. So they licensed the series from us since we had already, funded it ourselves. But it's something that, like, even on we're shopping several projects now where we have to, one thing I always preach is, like, if we really believe in a project, then we can't waver from it. We have to be persistent, and let's prepare for the passes,
Mm-hmm.
and so that when we put it out there and we like identify the platforms, whether it's streamers or premium cable, or now we're doing more with brands, because brands are their own networks now. Let's just target these 7 or 8 places, and let's mentally prepare for 6 of them to say, great idea, not for us. And that 7th one to say, maybe let's have a call, and then, like, when you prepare that way, I hate to say it, but that's just the way it is, where you get, or we already have something in that space, come back next time. So it's hard. But I think it's just like the key for us, especially with this series, because it was passed by most of the streamers and by most of the premium cable outlets, had passed on this. So thankfully, our CEO really believed in it, and we were able to stay with it. But a lot of times, Paul, like, you're going to have to punt on something.
Sure.
We did not on this because we had already spent, frankly, somebody's money. So we had to deliver for that person. Sometimes we've been in projects where we've got the funding to go shoot a sizzle reel. So you shoot for 6 days with somebody, and you put together a great sizzle reel, and you're pitching that, and nothing happens with it. And that's it. Project goes on the shelf, and it goes away, even though it's a passion project or something you really believe in. But you're writing grants, and you're hoping to, but we have those projects which are up there on the shelf, are great, could be great, and they just sit there because of whether funding or lack of interest from a buyer. So yeah, it's hard, but and it's easier for the bigger production companies in New York, Los Angeles. For us, it's like we have to be more selective and take the swings that we take at our company, since we're a smaller production company, have to be like pretty measured. We can't be just saying, oh, that looks like a cool story, let's just go out and shoot for 10 days, not knowing all the particulars about it, because we're going to go spend to hire 2 cameras, a sound guy, and this and that. So like, we have to feel pretty good before we go out in the field that we have something.
And then, I mean, there's so much that you can control, and there's so much that you can work on and plan on. But then life throws a pandemic at you. And so when you were actually going back for season 2 of Basketball or Nothing, everything sort of shifts because of the COVID crisis, right? Something that you can't control, but yet you still have to deliver on a product.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the season we were out there, and the season had just ended, and but we were budgeted to be out there longer, so now we have all these free days where we can just spend with the kids, and that was awesome for us. And that can live anywhere in the 6 episodes, that can live in the first episode. You really have your just time now where there's no practices, there's no games, and let's just have a great 10, 12-hour days with these kids. And we were doing that for about 8 days, and then the pandemic hits. So we fly back to Philadelphia in late February, early March of 2020. And, we immediately start like, what are we going to do? So we just said, let's make the most of it. And we sent out some small cameras to the kids and asked them to self-shoot. Like, you're going to tell the end to this story. And the kids got into it because they are posting videos of themselves all the times anyway, and they grow up shooting themselves or taking selfies, So the kids who had current iPhones or iPhones that shot in 4K, we sent like a small tripod and microphones out to them, and then we sent 1 or 2 like nice 4K cameras to like 2 adults who were able to shoot graduation for us. Really unique, like drive-through graduation where the kids just got out of the car to get the diploma and get back in. So like, we thought it's interesting to, rather than like mope about it, this is unique, and let's approach it as, hey, this community is going to tell the end of their story here, and let's make them, the whole thing's always been a collaboration. So why not have them shoot some stuff as well? And we'll probably do it like in the episode, put a card up or some words on the screen that say that, due to the pandemic. And the pandemic hit this area harder per capita than any other area in the United States, and it hit a couple of kids on the team, and there was a death involving with one of our characters, a family member. So yeah, it's something that like will play a role in the second season, probably, in our finale, since it happened kind of a postscript to the season. But yeah, it's interesting. And then Paul asking the kids to upload footage where Wi-Fi is extremely slow and 2 minutes could take a day. It said, okay, we'll ship some hard drives out there. And then we had each kid kind of drive to the gym and hand off their footage, transfer it over to hard drives for us and send it back. And then you get a whole bunch of hard drives, and you're looking through footage, and for every 1 hour, there's a really great 30 seconds, and that's all you're hoping for,
Yeah.
So, and they got into it. They're like, hey, how's my stuff look? And I'm like, hey, I said, you're going to be in the credits, additional photography by, and they think they're going to see their names up there. So it's cool to get them involved like that.
Yeah. In the few minutes that we have left, I mean, we talked about the awards at the outset of the program, but when all is said and done, when you work on a series like this, Basketball or Nothing, I guess it's great to get all of the accolades, but perhaps the biggest accolades come from that community that you have focused your cameras on for a number of months. So when you sit back and look, what is the feeling that you get, Matt, knowing that you've been able to do a great job in shining a light on this community and to tell their story? Because oftentimes you don't get that opportunity. But what's it for you? How does it make you feel that you were able to do something like this?
I kind of get chills hearing your question, because I think that the best moments for me for this whole experience were the day the series launched. That night, getting text messages from the kids, and they were asking me, hey, where is Argentina? And I said, what do you mean? He said, I just got a message on my Instagram from someone in Argentina saying, good luck, you can do it. And then I had a kid ask me, where is Abu Dhabi? And I said, oh, it's here. And they said, oh, someone just said, hey, I just saw you. And I said, keep me posted. And that whole first weekend, they're just sending me these messages from Germany, from China. And I said, and they're like, I can't believe that they know about us and that they're telling us to make sure we graduate and rooting for us. And I'm like, that's more than it. Who cares about awards? You know, when you hear that and you see that, like, these kids realize that they got a chance to tell their story and that people are supporting them now, what could be, you know, any award that comes after that is just like, it's a bonus, you know? So hearing that, and then the ultimate reward in what we do, Paul, is like the chance to do it again, you know, like that's more important than anything. So like to be able to go back out there a second time where they know who we are now. And like, you get out there day one and you're hugging people and you're like, what are we doing? Let's go shoot this. And like, that's, you know, the support that the kids got, the pride they took in having their story told, and then to be able to try and do it again were the three most important things, and anything else is just kind of gravy.
I wish we could go on for another half hour, but we are at the end of our time here. And Matt, it is a pleasure to have met you, to talk about your projects, and to applaud you and your efforts. And I want to wish you personally all the best and continued success in the future. And hopefully we'll be able to do this again sometime in the future with your next project.
That's my pleasure. Yeah, it's been great talking to you, Paul. And yeah, certainly I hope to do something here that would merit being back on the show. So I thank you, and I thank Tanya for having me on.
All right, Matt Howley with us here on this edition of the Philly Factor. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in, and we'll catch you the next time around here on the Philly Factor.